Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast. Today's episode 3, and we're going to be talking about jobs and what we can learn from them. This is Evelyn.
And this is Sarah. So first starting off, what was, your first job? And, kind of what did it teach you? What were you surprised about when you first kind of joined, working as a teen?
So, I was, in middle school, and I was just kind of babysitting and pet sitting for either, friends or neighbors or, family friends. And although it wasn't, a hired, I didn't sign any paperwork, I was still working and I was getting paid for it. And I think just a lot of what I learned was just having to take care of someone else and, someone younger than me and a kid or, a pet as opposed to just myself, which I had never really been exposed to before. And I think also with young kids and everything, you have to do a ton of problem solving. You have to do a lot of critical thinking. If I'm trying to put a baby down for a nap and they don't want a nap, how do I work around that? Or how do I work around, making up things to do with the kids or where to take them and stuff like that. Which I feel like is a great first job to have because, I don't know. It's important. These kids' lives were in my hands, but also,
exactly.
I don't know. It was pretty chill, and the fact that they were kind of my friends and family, I think it was great.
Mm-hmm. Also, the basics of, just how to take care of yourself and other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, my first job was, I actually worked at a marina on a lake in New Hampshire. And literally, we did everything. The main job was working on the gas dock to, pump gas into the different boats and stuff like that. There was also, a little corner store on the dock, so we would also go and work that, the register, restock. And then, it was a really, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just, a really, really big, kind of plate. I don't know how to describe it. There were docks that we had to go and organize as well. And then, there was a front office kind of at the entrance of the marina, not on the lakeside.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd have to, handle, customer confrontation and, where to park people, what to do. We had condos across the street, so we landscaped the yard. We had, all the bathrooms.
So you were doing everything.
Yeah, they would send us to, go clean the bathrooms as well.
Yeah.
So, literally, this job, had me doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think, so many critical skills that I'm, going to use in the future. Just how to, manage everything that you do. They'd give you a task for a day, they'd give you a task for a different day. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to just know how to do so many different things.
Yeah.
Which was, it was difficult at first, obviously, because, you just kind of jumped in, and then each day you were doing something completely different for the first 2 weeks. But it ended up being fun, because, shuffling around your tasks made it, more manageable.
Yeah.
For me, it's just easier not to do the same thing the whole time.
And, how old were you?
Oh, I think I was, 15.
Yeah, I feel like when you're that young, it's easier to have, a bunch of little tasks
Exactly.
and, have one specialty.
Definitely.
It really kind of introduces you to a bunch of different things that you would have to do in the future.
Mm-hmm. And, other than that, too, I can remember, one specific story. I was, we had to get there. It was, actually, they gave me really long work hours. I was working from, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m.
Wow.
All day. It was crazy. But one thing I did, in fact, learn was I was late, 15 minutes once, and I was, literally screaming at my mom and, having a breakdown and, typical 15-year-old stuff to get me to work. And, I got there, and they were like, oh, you're fine, just don't let it happen again.
Yeah.
And, I've never been late to work since. So, I'm glad it happened that young to where, it really wasn't a big deal at the time, but, now I'm, never gonna be late to work again. It taught me, strict punctuality, and now I'm,
yeah, that's
very
good.
on top of things.
Especially since it wasn't, a super harsh punishment. It was kind of just,
exactly.
I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Exactly.
So, you had to kind of be okay, it won't happen again.
Exactly. The same lesson was taught.
Yeah.
Just, lower scale.
Yeah.
And punishment, so thank God for that.
Yeah.
But... Alrighty, any other jobs?
Well, I'm a lifeguard, and I've worked at 3 different places now. So I started at a pool in my town in the summer. That was super chill. It was an outdoor pool. It was a country club, so it was kind of the same people every day. that was, like, really easy. I only worked one summer there, and then I started working the next summer at a beach in Cape Cod, and I still work there, and it's actually my favorite job ever. I love it so much. So it's a beach lifeguard. Obviously, it's a lot more, like, intense than just a pool. Like, we have waves, we have sharks, we have a bunch of people, like, getting stuck in the waves or, like, getting heat exhaustion. So definitely I learned a lot more about, like, actually being a lifeguard, and you have to pay attention to so much more because the beach is bigger than just a pool, and there's kids in the sand, and there's so many more hazards and everything. So I think I definitely just learned to pay attention to everything around me and know what's going on. And I think I mentioned it in the other episodes, but communication was huge because we had radios between, like, the towers and also, like, the fire department and the police department. And I think just being able to tell your coworkers what you need and what's happening in order to get everything handled efficiently and safely. That's just kind of, like, the biggest thing I would say I learned from, especially at the beach. Yeah, so it's my favorite job ever. I also work at the pool at the Yukon Rec here, but that's just, like, so much more chill. Like, it's indoor, like, there's barely ever anyone really in the water. So I think I haven't really learned anything new from that job. It's just kind of, like, an easier version of what do I do in the summer.
I might have to look into that.
Yeah. But, like, the biggest, I feel like, obviously there's pros and cons to every job. I think just the cons are, like, how stressful it can be sometimes. Like, if there's a really big wave day and there's a bunch of people in the water and you have to pay attention to everything all the time. And I think also just being able to make decisions. Like, there's sometimes we have a rule that, like, you can't swim out too far, and then you're kind of using your own judgment to look at the swimmer and be like, okay, well, realistically, like, are they a good swimmer? Are they strong? Like, maybe you can bend the rules a little bit here and there, but then it's, like, really knowing your own self and using your judgment and making critical decisions all the time. I feel like that's, like, it can get stressful because you kind of doubt yourself sometimes, but just really knowing to trust yourself and knowing that your judgment probably is valid and, like, you're thinking it for a reason.
Yeah, I was a lifeguard as well. Like, that's one of the things that I've done. I worked at the YMCA for, like, a season. And that was okay. I feel like it was an indoor pool, and it did get crowded. That was the most difficult part of the whole time. It was, we'd have to, like, end up, like, counting the amount of people in the pool every 30 minutes, and there would be, like, 25 people that I was, like, working towards trying to see, and all different ages. Sometimes you'd have, like, a bunch of lessons, so that was actually less stressful, because, like, the instructor was always there, too, so, like, it was just, like, you know, they were also watching the pool with you. But then when it's open swim and you have adults and children and toddlers and noodles and everything like that in the pool, it was just so stressful trying to, like, see everything. There's so much movement. And then it's, like, hot and it's loud in there. Like, oh my gosh.
Wait,
it was...
Speaking of the swim instructors, I forgot that I also have taught swim lessons to both kids and adults. Like, I taught at the rec center here, too. And I feel like you can learn so much from that because if it's kids and they're not listening, you have to find a way to make it more, like, appealing to them. But when I taught adults, like, it's very different because these people have spent their whole lives either being afraid of water or not knowing, and it's just, like, such a bigger hurdle to, like, get over because they're older and they're kind of past that point of learning new things. So I feel like that and just definitely, like, critical thinking, problem solving is a huge thing.
And then... Similarly, I've had multiple jobs lifeguarding. So currently I lifeguard at a beach up at the lake. And it's interesting because sometimes, like, the shifts are a lot shorter, because actually this year we did get last year I was doing it alone, and this year we did hire another lifeguard, so it's, like, a really small kind of community, so it's, like, easier compared to, like, the amount of people that I've been watching before. But the lake is, like, it's dark water, so if someone goes under, you really can't see them. So, like, that's something I have to think about.
That's scary.
And there's, like, a dock that we have, like, for at the lake, and like, kids will swim out to it, like, jump off of it, and, like, constantly I'm, like, blowing my whistle, screaming at kids to, like, not run or not jump,
Yeah.
like flip or whatever. And so yeah, and like I feel like it's so different because when the community is different and you start seeing the same people over and over and over again, rather than working like at the Y, like in the middle of a city, you have like
New people all the time.
Yeah, every time. So like
Yeah.
I sometimes like will talk to like the adults that usually sit near my chair, like they'll set up all like the different kids that come up and talk to me sometimes. Like it's like so different. So it's like much more relaxing. But
That's like my beach is in such like a tourist town and tourist everything that it's just new people every day. But sometimes you do get like the regulars. I love talking to people and finding out where they're from and stuff.
Yeah. Definitely. And like yeah, same thing. What I liked about it was like, I don't know, specifically with lifeguarding, just like, I don't know, sometimes like talking to people, sometimes it's like a calming job. Like, especially when like it's not busy. Like I like sit and I listen to my music or something and like that's still my job. Like
and I like when I'm at the beach, like come on, that's like the best office you can get. You're looking at the beach.
Exactly.
It's so much fun.
Like I'm sitting here like with my feet in the sand. Like what could be better?
Literally.
Like but at the same time, like it's just so stressful, like knowing what could happen.
Right.
Like I do have a specific story. One time, during, it wasn't this past summer, but it was last summer. And all year long I had been like doing every hour, which was like number one, exhausting. Number two, like I just ended up hating the job by the end of the summer. So that was like a little side note, one thing. And then another thing was the fact that I go to DC every year on like a little service trip. So I was away on my trip and a kid had happened to flip off the dock and split his head open. He knocked his head on the side of the dock.
My gosh.
And like a lifeguard off duty, no one was there to help him. So like a ton of like kids or like adults had to run in and grab him. And like thinking of the fact that it would have been me, like I am trained to like know how to get that child out of the water safely, bandaged up, call 911. Like you need to do everything. Like no one else there was, well, I'm not sure if anybody else was CPR AD certified or lifeguard in the past, like, but like as far as I know, nobody else there was trained enough to do that. And so like I kind of like feel a little bit of guilt, you know, like knowing that I could have
like
helped.
you weren't there.
Exactly. So like that's another thing that like you think about too, like, oh, what could happen? And then you think about how the responsibility is 100% on you. Like you're the one that's there in the uniform, trained and ready to like help. So it's like that type of pressure is also like,
but I also feel like if like the pressure is a lot and it's so stressful, but then once something happens and like actually goes well, like last year we had an older man who got hit by a really big wave and he got passed out, like knocked out, so we had to do like a full spinal on him and put him on a backboard and carry him up and do CPR and all this stuff. And it was like executed so well. It was me and a couple of my other coworkers, and like just knowing that all the training and all the certification, like we do it for a reason.
It pays off.
And obviously like we're sitting at the beach all day and it's a fun job, but when something actually happens, we know how to handle it. That's kind of like, it's just such a rewarding feeling. And afterwards people were like coming up and being like, you guys did so well, like good job and like all this stuff. And it's like, wow, like it's like that's enough of like a reward.
Like you did what you know how to do. It's, very rewarding, definitely. So I also have like another kind of side note about lifeguarding. Up until this year, I like the hours were so long for me and I was just sitting at the beach for so long, like losing concentration. Like my shift was 5 hours at some days and I would get like a 30-minute break in between, which is like way too much to be doing.
Mine is 9 to 5 and we get breaks. 2 30-minute breaks. It's like, it's like a lot.
It's a lot. Especially compared to like when I was guarding at the Y, like they wouldn't let us guard for more than an hour without a 5-minute break, or at least a 10-minute break or something. So like it was so different, and like I felt like I wasn't getting like paid enough for it to be worth it for me to be sitting like on the beach and, like, getting a headache every day.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought it was so, like, not worth it. And then this past year, like, they hired another lifeguard, so now my shifts are split, and they ended up increasing our pay, which I thought was
That's
much
awesome.
more well worth it.
Yeah.
I was, like, so happy. And I was about to, like, not go back to that job, but also at the same time, it's, like, a smaller beach, smaller community, so I kind of, like, have my, like, I feel a civic duty to, like, kind of just go and offer to do that for them anyways. So, like, I don't know if that's peer pressure or what, but, like, so it's just something like that. So I possibly would have gone back for a few shifts anyways, but now it just makes it so much more worth it.
And now you actually want to go back.
Exactly. Like, now I'm going to continue to do it throughout the summer, even, like, on top of my other job, which I suppose we'll
get into next.
Yeah. Did you want to go first?
Sure. So over the summer, I'm also a host at a restaurant kind of in the middle of this big, like, tourist town where my beach is at too. And I think I've never worked in a restaurant before this summer, and I really learned so much. And I think the biggest difference between lifeguarding and hosting is just, like, the amount of interaction with people, because when I'm at the beach, I'm just sitting and I'm watching the water, and sometimes people come up and talk to me and stuff, but I feel like when you're at a restaurant, the people are really, they can either make or break the place. And I think all my shifts, like, my whole mood, my whole everything really depended on the people there, because sometimes they're so nice, they're so sweet. Again, like, I have tons of tourists that go there, so I meet people from different states, countries, all this stuff, and I love talking to them and finding where they're from and what they're doing here and all that kind of stuff. But also, like, a lot of times they're hungry, they're impatient, we don't take reservations, so they come in and it's like, if there's a line, there's a line, you have no other choice. Like,
True.
So we had some really cranky people, very entitled people, and at the beginning, I kind of took everything really personally. Like, if they got mad at me because they had to wait, I felt like it was my fault somehow. But then I was like, wait, I'm an 18-year-old girl. I just started working here. We have rules for a reason. Like, everyone's waiting for a table. Like, this isn't personal. And so I feel like that was kind of the biggest thing I took away is obviously I had a lot of thinking and stuff to do, and I had a lot of my own responsibilities. And I feel like taking all these people's attitude and all of their complaints and everything was not, like, my job at all. So I think just kind of, like, knowing that I can't please everyone and I'm not going to please everyone, and just not taking things personally.
Definitely. I can 100% agree to that. My first year hosting was also this past summer, so obviously I had a lot to learn. But I totally agree. As, like, a host, and, like, working at a restaurant anyways, you're gonna get so much, like, face-to-face confrontation. People are gonna come up to you, ask questions, ask for salt and pepper, ask where the bathroom is. Like, that's just, like, part of working in a restaurant. If you're a waitress, you're gonna go up and talk to tables. But, like, I feel like as a host, they put you front and center as the face of the restaurant. So your job is specifically to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, I don't know, kind of really underappreciated, because I see, like, hundreds of faces a day. Like, even in one shift, if I work a double, like, I'll see 250 people.
Yeah.
And that's just, especially if you're, like on, well, we call it on book, but, like, writing down tables.
Yeah.
And, like, you're up front, you're telling people where to see
remember
people.
what people look like, their names. Yeah.
And so, and also, one of our jobs is to remember to, like, tell the waitresses who, like, what their table is or, like, where to go. Like, and so it's definitely, like, such a responsibility, but I feel like the main part of hosting, like, the difficult part I had to get over was the fact, like, that you definitely said not to take anything personally.
Yeah.
Like, I was just so nervous about, like, I'm naturally such a people pleaser, so, like, hosting at first was really, really difficult for me, but then I kind of learned the fact that, like, if someone comes to a restaurant and they're, like, you have to expect to, like, wait sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to expect, like, you're getting, like, serviced, like, so it's not going to be perfect every time. Everyone's human, and you can definitely tell that some people understand that and some people don't. Like, and you just have to roll with it. You have to, like, do what you can. Like, that's definitely a huge thing that I learned. And also, so there's also a ton of different aspects that I do with my hosting job. So we're, as hosts, expected to bus tables as well.
Same.
So that's something that I learned was, like, different from other restaurants.
Yeah.
And then, like, at the beginning of the shift, if you're a morning shift, you have to, like, clean off everything, vacuum, refill,
me too.
salt, pepper, refill.
So it's
with
so
oil.
much. Everyone thinks when I say that I'm a host, they're like, "Oh, so you just sit at the front and tell people where to sit?"
No.
And I'm like, "No, not at all. Like,
No.
it's so much more. All the opening and closing shifts, and like sometimes the waitresses have too many tables. I help carry food, or
Exactly.
It's so much more. Whenever anyone needs like a refill or something else, like they ask me instead of the waitress. So I'm like constantly walking and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as easy as it sounds at all.
The amount of, like, steps I get on
Yeah.
any hosting
No,
day.
there
like-
was one day I worked a double and I walked 10 miles.
Yeah.
And my restaurant is tiny.
Exactly.
And I was like, wow. But I think I always said, like, sometimes I would work as a lifeguard during the day and then host at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they, like, canceled each other out so well because at the beach I'm sitting all day and I'm not really, like, talking to, like, people and stuff. And I just have I just have to watch the water. But then, like, when the restaurant, I have all these, like, little, like, almost mindless tasks, like wiping off tables. Like, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to stress about it. But then I also, like, am talking to all these people and seeing all these people. So I loved kind of working both. It was exhausting, but after both, I'm like, wow, I feel like I just had, like, such, like, a well-rounded experience.
Definitely.
But,
Wait, I've had the same experience because this year I, like, started lifeguarding from, like, 12 to, like, what was it, 2:30 or something like that, maybe 3. So I'd get a good few hours of, like, relaxing, sitting on the beach. Well, I mean, also I'm doing my job.
Right.
But, and then you'd go, like, our shifts for some reason started at 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go from, like, 4 to 10.
Yeah.
And those were our, like, night shifts. Sometimes I'd close. There's so many tasks involved with that as well, but we'll get into that later. But, like, definitely the balance. So I'd have, like, the morning to, like, kind of chillax. Like, maybe I'd go on a run, maybe I'd work out, maybe I'd, like, sit and do, like, on my phone even, like, just, like, do nothing. And then, like, I absolutely loved the fact that I could do multiple things per day. So I can definitely relate to that. But yeah, definitely, like, with hosting,
it's very different, but I feel like they both, like, teach us so many important things. I think just, like, that interaction with people, like, is super important.
Yeah, I definitely like the fact that like both lifeguarding and hosting can be, like, exciting at times too. Like, hosting, like, I kind of like to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick one, I'd probably choose hosting over lifeguarding, interestingly.
Really?
Just because I also like the people that I work with. Like, that's also another thing. Sometimes, like, you can get into, like, issues with the people that you work with, and, like, you know, waitresses against hosts, or like kitchen people against whoever. But it's, like, sometimes it's fun. Like, I've, like, made, like, friends, like, hosting. And when you're a lifeguard, at least in my experience, I'm, like, sitting alone.
I'm never sitting alone at my beach. I'm always sitting with at least one other person. And, like, all of my coworkers are, like, my best friends. And I love them so much. And we all live in, like, a motel on the beach together. So we spend, like, all day, like, all the time together. So I'd say, like, that lifeguarding job is my favorite job just because, like, it's just so much fun. It's beautiful. I get to go in the water all the time. I get to surf in the mornings. We work out all together in the mornings. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's so much fun. But, again, like, high risk, high reward. Like,
definitely. 100%. And, like, compared to, like, other, like, kind of learning environments, like, another thing that I've kind of had to deal with anyways, like, just, like, working in general, finding a job, applying to a job, like, you're dealing with, like, real world people. You're dealing with, like, taxes sometimes. You're dealing with your social security, paperwork, your bank account, and it's just, like, sometimes it's a lot. Like, at first,
I feel like a big girl.
filling out like all the applications, like, that's also a huge takeaway from, like, learning in a work environment. Like, just the application process in general. Like, as a 15-year-old, when you're dealing with, what is my social security number? Like
what's a W-40 or whatever?
Exactly. Like, all the different prerequisites, like, before you even reach the job, before you even reach all the different skills that we discussed. Like, there's so much that you can take away.
Absolutely. But I think just, like, knowing that a job, like, you're getting paid for it. Like, in school, I feel like sometimes you can kind of, like, slack off or say, like, oh, it's really not that important at the end of the day. But at a job, like, you're held to a certain level of, like, accountability that, like, you're getting paid for this job. You're doing this job for a reason. You probably had some sort of training or something. Mm-hmm. And you're dealing with real people, real issues all the time. Like, it's so much more important, I think. Mm-hmm. And I feel like just kind of that pressure and that mindset of being like, I'm getting paid for this. I have to do it right. I have to do it well.
The focus automatically sets in.
Yeah.
And you realize, wait, this is the job I have to do and I will do it well.
Right.
Like, just automatically clicks.
Yeah.
Like,
which I think, again, like, just teaches us so much.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I think that's it.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.